gentlemen, George Krichbaum.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
I fear that Polly has looked at me like I'm the Grim Reaper. But I'm not. Thank you all. What a joy to be with you here tonight in Northern Country Club. Unaccustomed though I am to public speaking, I have come a great distance by virtue of a socialistic government subsidy to represent the patrons of the excuse me, one moment. Of the Anchorage Pub in Troon at these festivities. Now I hope you'll not be put off by my brogue. It can be a wee bit off-putting. Surprisingly, I find, though, that if I have a Scotch or 12, I start sounding frighteningly like an American. I have had a Scotch or 12 today. Now, in order to be properly compensated for my trip, I am required to begin by bringing you greetings on behalf of Her Highness the Queen. And is even hangier the Prince of Wales. It's good to get the taste of that out of my mouth. Well, as you may have supposed, I am present to say a few words about wee Polly Simson. Stand up here, Polly, where we can get a better look at you. Don't worry, I will not bite you. I'm kind of like that Jack Sprat fella. He eats no fat. Well, there he is, ladies and gentlemen, the great champion. And some think that God has no sense of humor. I first became aware of this man in connection with our Seniors Open Amateur Tournament. Oh, I should say championship. They don't like the word tournament. In 2006. To be honest, this championship was in decline and had become the province of toothless old caddies and drunken greenskeepers, plus a few decrepit fobs from the clubs wherever it was played. In many ways, it was similar to the situation of our big open championship in the 1950s when no great American golfer would come over to compete. This changed when the sainted Arnold Palmer made a trip across the pond in 1960 and the Open regained its glory and its major status. Well, when we heard that a famous American amateur was coming to compete in our Seniors Open Amateur, we thought this must just be the boost the championship so badly needed. But soon we learned that his name was Simson. And we began to fret that it might be OJ. After So I contacted a cousin in the States who left me a voice message saying, "It ain't OJ, it's Paulie, and he has no pee." This latter struck me as a bit too much information. But I paid tuppence or more at the county fair to see far less strange things than a man who has no pee. Well, settlers crossed the board to North Devon where the championship was to take place. And while we were all waiting at the train station when Paulie was scheduled to arrive, waiting breathlessly for the man who would save our senior urban amateur. We stared intensely at each departing passenger in search of the swashbuckler, the handsome, swaggering figure of a man, the Adonis with the blacksmith arms. You can imagine our surprise. And their disappointment as we observe this wee round man in a proper straw hat. Now you must be careful what you ask for. You see, we had been praying for a God, but we weren't specific. And he arrived in the form of a bleeding Buddha. Well, a murmur ran through the crowd and someone said in Gaelic, "Brogan, Godum, Spadookland." I know there may, if I need your help, I'll ask for it. I know there may be a couple of you here that do not speak Gaelic, but you can learn, so everyone say it with me. Bragan, Gadum, Spadookland. It means the golfer that looks like a goddamn fat potato farmer. Of course, on the bright side, we now had a pretty good idea of what happened to his pee. Actually, it was probably ill-advised of me to ask you to speak Gaelic in that it most surely makes you bilinguals. And so I'm told, void your marriages in North Carolina. Well, back to Paulie. We were embarrassed beyond measure. But what were we to do? It is not our nature to be inhospitable. After all, we are named French. So we decided to give the lads a chance. Now, as I'm sure you know where, Paulie is not one to talk of himself. Did I say something funny? But after telling us his life story, including his attic full of unopened boxes of 3 golf shoes and apparel, every free meal he had ever eaten, and of Saturdays at the Pill game here at Northridge, where And they say we Scots are tight with our coin. Polly here would squeeze an old nickel until chips fall out of the buffalo. But he explained that he had been impoverished and had a hard scrabble upbringing. He was being forced to work in the sawmills at the tender age of 10, where he tragically lost the better parts of his fingers. Not to mention the damage done to his wee tallywhacker. Of course, this latter circumstance did not present him from somehow attracting a lovely wife, Chris, and with her having a fine son who just spoke with such pride and admiration about his father. I was touched nearly to tears by Philip's remarks. A very good lad indeed. Sadly misguided regarding his father's character, but a good lad nonetheless. These grievous injuries notwithstanding, Polly must have some sort of animal magnetism that is not readily apparent. For every time he passed a flock of sheep in our country, they would make an extraordinary maneuver, which I believe in the States you call circling the wagons. I will note to the contrary of what you may think, that there is nothing wrong with his arms. He just dresses to make them look shortish, so that he can fake having trouble getting to his wallet when the check comes. Or when there's a dolphin wager to be paid. Where when the other dolphin competitors looked at Polly, they were likewise stunned. He appeared to be just as big a sot as they, which was comforting. But he had most of his own teeth. Perhaps not Tiger Woods caliber teeth, but more or less in the right place and still attached. The prospect of competing against a player with his own teeth proved too much for the locals. And they flipped over like Maureen McIntosh on a hayride, if you